Good evening, everyone. I am pleased and honored to introduce our guest speaker for today's event, Mr. Ram Gopal. Just before I begin introducing him, we would just like to play the NUSSD video first. Thank you, everyone, for patiently viewing the video, which summarizes the work that we as NUSSD undertake. Thank you. To go ahead with Mr. Ram Gopal's introduction, he has been an inspiration to everyone because not only that he is hardworking and dedicated to his job, but also because of his passion. Mr. Gopal has completed his CFA and done his master's from the University of Chicago in 2004. He is currently the CEO with BARCLAYS. He has been associated with them for over 13 years and is responsible for the performance, growth, regulatory relationships, and future strategy of all the businesses conducted in the banking entity in India. Before joining Barclays, he was the regional head of consumer operations, Middle East and South Asia with Standard Chartered Bank. He was associated with them for over 11 years and prior to that with Citibank. We are extremely delighted to have you here, sir. Wish you a very good evening, and we are excited to have you share your experience, which I'm sure will guide our students to help them understand and build a successful career. Just before I hand over to you, I request Tanmay sir to please come in and give a brief introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Silpaji, for that introduction of Mr. Ram Gopal. He's our esteemed guest today, this evening, and we all are going to learn from him today some of the important lessons in career building. Students, principals, um, career is a very, very important word today, given that the new education policy that has been announced by the government of India recently, it mentions career 20 times in a 66-page document. You can imagine the importance that the government of India is attaching to a word like career. And therefore, it is important for us to understand what does it mean and how can we build a great career for ourselves uh, to to help India leverage its demographic dividend that is being talked about. So it's our pleasure and honor to have you, Mr. Gopal, with us this evening, and we all look forward to listening to your talk this evening. Um, Akashji, would you like to add maybe one line to that before we cut across to Mr. Gopal?
Thank you so much. I think a wonderful introduction. Thank you, Shilpa, and welcome once again, sir. Awesome experience to have you, and eager to listen to you and your insights. Yes, indeed, as sir mentioned, that getting in any organization is just the beginning. What happens from there on is career. So building career is extremely important, and I'm sure you are going to share a lot of insights around it. Thank you, and eager to listen to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with all of you, Shilpa ji, Tanmay, and Akash. It's so kind of you to have me join all of you today. To all of the listeners, I'm sure you have many opportunities or options in terms of how you might have wanted to spend this hour. The fact that you've chosen to spend that with me in this conversation, I'm humbled. Thank you so much. The Shilpa ji, Tanmay, and Akash spoke about, the fact that there will be many insight shared by virtue of or in this conversation. I think the way I want to do start off is, first of all, acknowledging that apart from the fact that I've had a lot of my success attributed to several people. I just wanted you folks to be very clear that if you're looking for something new, I don't think I have it in me to be able to generate new insights. But what I have, because I've spent about 27 years working, I can kind of share with you as a practitioner what are some of the things that has worked for me, for you to consider whether you may want to, as you are thinking about your career, whether you want to think about those elements or not. So the way I'm going to be structuring is that, I want to take you back and walk with me as I talk to you about my career, where I started, and what were the hops and jumps that I made to get to where I got to or where I am right now. And as I do that, I want to place before you a few key learnings that I've had. So I worked with 3 companies before, or this is the 3rd company that I'm working for. So 2 lessons each. So at the end of this 30 minutes or so, I want to bring before you 6 maxims or learnings for your consideration. The balance of the rest of the session we could spend either if you've got something on top of your mind that you would like a perspective on, I would be more than happy to try and attempt to answer some of the queries you may have. So with that said, let me get started. I joined the banking industry way back in 1993. That was the time when foreign banks were beginning to enter the consumer markets. Um, so I got this job with Citibank to join their credit cards division. And the job that I had was you had several applications that were made. You had to look through the applications, the documents that were attached to it, and you had to make a decision whether this is somebody to whom you would like to give credit, or is this something for which either you want more information, or given what you see, you don't want to progress that application. So it was a simple job. So, I had, it was a case of a reluctant banker. I had always wanted to pursue, teaching. And I came on to this because unknown to me, my professors had given my resume along with a few of my fellow, colleagues in the school, in the management school, to Citibank, and they had shortlisted few of us to come for an interview. Because the interview happened in a place where I've got lots of relatives, I thought, hey, here is a good way not just to go and see the world, but also try and get to meet my relatives once over again. So I just took the train from, I was at that point in time in Coimbatore. I took the train, came to Chennai. I attended the interview, and without it was all happening in a fast TC. I had this job offer, and at that point in time, our compulsions was that I get to a job and start earning as quickly as I could, and this was because I had a job in hand. I came to take that. So that was how I started. So one of the first things that I want all of you to know is that it is possible that you can, and I don't necessarily hold this to be, success in the fact that, title is just one dimension of how you want to think about this word success. So I would say that one lesson out of sharing what I did about my interview process, about my humble beginning, is that it is so accidental. It wasn't as if I designed for it, or I, kind of built my formative years wanting to achieve something and I got to it. It just happened by accident. The fact that somebody like me could enter a fantastic organization like Citibank uh, should give you sufficient confidence that it is possible for each and one of you to have a spectacular career. Yeah. So, and I think it was Akash who put it quite brilliantly. This is just a start of something, right? You are ability to generate an offer letter from a company is just the starting point. Yeah. And at the starting point, I want all of you to know that the very fact that I have been able to do it and spend 27 years in the career thus far, in this industry thus far, it is imminently possible for all of you to have such a spectacular career if you want it. Yeah, with that said, let's get on I spent about 3 years with Citibank. There were two things that I really think I want to talk to you about. The first one was how, thus far, you understood who I was, this happy go lucky guy who did not really plan it. It so happened that I ended up working for a bank. But thereon, it took a considerable change. One of the first lessons that I learned in Citibank was about being intentional in any endeavor that we do. So, what do I mean by that? So in Citibank, when I joined, we were talking about credit card applications, right? It was the first foreign bank to launch credit cards in this market. And, everything that the bank wanted to do was in huge, they want to talk about huge numbers. If we were doing, let's say, 20,000 applications, they were talking about a time when we will do 100,000 applications. When we were doing 100,000 applications, they were talking about when shall we do 10 lakh applications. So, everything was built up. Yeah. So they taught me one very, very key lesson that if you want to achieve anything, one of the key things that you need to be thinking about is being intentional about it. Yeah. There is this famous thing that is said, which is there is a correlation between ambition and achievement. Ambition is the intentionality component to it. Achievement is your output component to it. Yeah. So if you want any output, you need to be very clear about what are some of those inputs and intentionality. Us, me, everybody wanting to move up in their career, better prospects for themselves, their family, and their loved ones. These are all intentional things. Yeah. Unless you have that motivation, intentionality, it is hard to think of us achieving anything. Yeah. So the first thing is there is a correlation between achievement and ambition. Ambition feeds achievement. Yeah. So that's the first thing. Be intentional. The second thing that I learned in my 3 year stint with Citibank is one around how it is important for you to think about people around you. This is, people say this many times. I can't emphasize how important that is. Sometimes when we grow up and when we are, through our college, university, school, etc., in some sense, what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out what is your edge over others. There is some competitiveness inside us that possibly takes root. I'm not saying necessarily that it is bad, but one of the important things that one needs to remember, as I learned in my stint in Citibank, is that it is very, very important to know that this is a team sport. A business success is a team sport. You cannot play it on your own. You need to have a support system. You need to work well with your colleagues. And sometimes this becomes a rude shock because for the first time, you would have somebody like your supervisor who possibly may not see things the way you're seeing it. You could have colleagues who are important, whose work is important for you to do your work, who may not see eye to eye with what you think or your philosophy of the world. Yeah. So it is very important to know that once you enter the industry or once you talk about a career, you have to think about it as a team sport. It is not a solo sport. It is not like tennis. It's more like football or cricket. Yeah, if you like the analogy to a sport. Yeah. So one of the things in Citibank was that everybody around me was a superstar, as in, they had possibly the best of best credentials. At that point in time, chartered accountancy was the in thing. You had people joining Citibank from top management schools in the country. IIM Ahmedabad, people from foreign universities join. So I had with me as my peers a lot of people who were, without a doubt, brilliant than me. Yeah. So one of the things that I therefore thought about, why my 3 year stint in Citibank was so insightful was just that it is a team sport. And the more important thing is before you even decide what you want to do, it is important to possibly think about who you want to do it with. Yeah, there is a fantastic management book, called Good to Great. This is by an author called Jim Collins. I think for anybody who aspires to have a management career, it is a book that I highly recommend. And one of the things that the author talks about there is first decide who you want to get in the bus before you decide where to drive the bus. Even before you think about goals, aspirations, ambition, achievement, think about who do you want with you in that journey. It is so vital. And as I move towards my other years of my career, I will come back to this point about how vital it is. Yeah. So if we started off saying that there is a correlation between ambition and achievement. Second thing, we said that business success is a team sport. Third thing, we said that it is important about who you have in the bus, more important than where you're taking the bus. So it is fantastic to have a great team, essentially what I'm saying. Yeah. So let's move to my next part of my journey. So I spent 3 years with Citi. It was fabulous for me. I always felt that, whatever we were able to do in this setup in Citibank, like I said, great people, very ambitious in terms of its aspirations, etc. Can I replicate the success elsewhere? And I also felt that having worked through my life in India, it would be fantastic if I had my work experience broadened by a stint, outside India. So I was looking for an opportunity, and I got an opportunity to work for Standard Chartered Bank in Dubai. I joined them in 1996. I started in the cards division, just as in Citibank. What I did, I went on to do it in Citibank. But from there on, I did quite a lot of things. I, helped establish, a center for them, which issued cards not just for the Dubai market, which is UAE, but also for Bahrain, but also for Qatar. Then a Standard Chartered Bank acquired a bank called Grindlays, and I led the cards integration for that region for Grindlays. So suddenly from UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, we became UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, Lebanon, Jordan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. You had a variety of markets that added to the portfolio. So suddenly you saw things that were working in one place that could be easily migrated to the other place, things that did not work that you could try and improve by learning from another place. In investments, when you put your money in mutual funds, etc., there is an important concept called diversification, which is if I had let's say 100 rupees of savings, will I put the entire 100 rupees in one stock or in one mutual fund? Maybe not. I'll try to split it to a minimum number that I'm comfortable with. The power of diversification is something that I learned in the early phase of my Standard Chartered Bank career. Coming to my career lessons, there were two lessons that I think is very important, and I would like to share that with you. The first one was, we started off, as to how it was important to have good people. There is another important variable. Good means what? Good, not in it is also in terms of intellectual, horsepower. But there is another dimension to good, and that is something called diversity. Diversity means not necessarily somebody who thinks like you, not somebody who is similar to you. There is, one of the big things that we say about this great country is that there is diversity. In the north, you've got, certain characteristics as to how you describe a North Indian. If you go to south, where I come from, there are certain things that you talk about for typical South India. Similarly, those who are from, the western region, those who are from the eastern region, we are all in some ways different, but in many ways, alike. It is a very similar concept. So, here I was, an Indian, going and working in the Middle East. I had a lot of UAE nationals in my team, and suddenly you were talking about Bahrainis, and then you were talking about Qataris, then you got Bangladeshis. You suddenly had a lot of people who were thinking so differently from you, whose worldview is different from you. I think one of the important reasons as to why, I've been able to, progress my career along the way that I have done is thanks to that exposure that Standard Chartered gave me. So the lesson is that diversity is so important to have around you and to have in your thinking. If you already are, we call it fixed mindset and open mindset. Just to talk a little bit about that, unless it comes up in a question, I don't want to spend too much time talking about theories. But a closed mindset or a fixed mindset is something where you have a certain view of the world and you maintain that rigidly, and you look at the world only through that lens. For example, one view of the world could be is that, Emiratis do not want to work. They are already very wealthy, therefore they come to work only to spend time. I mean, this is a mindset. It could be some other things, like, for example, one of the big gender stereotypes that we have, right? Which is that women and career are, very difficult to talk to in the same breath. Those were stereotypes that we were holding for such a long time. If you look around us, and very glad that we had somebody so distinguished like Shilpa ma'am today to open the conversation. See how different it is. So if you have a fixed mindset and you operate at work, you're not going to be successful. It is important for you to be open to new ideas. And that opening to new ideas will only come if people around you are not thinking and are not similar to you, who are dissimilar to you. Yeah. So that was some key lesson that I learned in Standard Chartered. Diversity improves business outcomes. That is the lesson. The next lesson that I want to talk about in Standard Chartered was about flat organizations. How you have to, when you come to an organization, if you ask anybody who wants to join a company, why would you want to join, or what is your aspiration? They will say, I want to become the CEO. I want to become the boss. And why do you want to become the boss? Because suddenly you say that, okay, with boss, being a boss means that you have a lot of power, you have a lot of control, you can command, and people will deliver for you. That is far from being true. I learned this lesson way back I after 3 years, from 93 to 96, I was with Citibank. From 96 to 2007, I was in Standard Chartered. So I'm talking about during the early 2000s, that this lesson about flat organizations. What does that mean is that you have to lead. If you want to lead, You have to lead only through influence. Positional authority has no meaning. Why do I say that? Because one of the things that we realize as you work with people, diverse people, is if you can give them autonomy, if you can give them ability to set their own agenda, you will suddenly find that they are more engaged, they are more productive, they are more creative than if you had, micromanaged them. Yeah, so that, in a flat organization, one of the things it teaches you is that you got to be able to align people around your vision or your broad agenda. It cannot come by forcing people to do as what you ask them to do. Why? Because how do you know you are correct? People may turn up and ask, what happens when you say something which is so untrue, or you bet on something which becomes a disaster? So what capacity will you have to lead? So it isn't about power. It isn't about position that you hold in the organization. It is entirely upon, trying to spark the discretionary energy that everybody brings to bear when they are engaged. Yeah. So they call it, don't appeal to the mind, but appeal to the heart. Yeah. So, that is one of the key things that I learned while managing such a diverse portfolio in Standard Chartered Bank. Yeah. Lead through influence, not by position or title. I can give you many examples, but if there is questions, we can come back to it. Let me move on. Some of us who went to other parts of the world during that 2000, specifically in the banking industry, felt that we possibly miss the opportunity when India opened up its gates to allow for new banks to be set up, the private sector banks, the HDFCs, the ICICIs, etc., were set up in the early 2000s. And we in the banking industry, people who spent time outside, always wondered when is a good time to come back to again replicate what we have done, in the India market. Yeah. And the other thing was, at that point in time, the story clearly was one of India shining, right? About the huge demographic dividend and how India, by virtue of opening up for foreign participation and our markets getting competitive because of foreign participation, how new ideas were coming onto the business, arena. So I wanted to come back. My parents were aging and ailing as well, so I wanted to come back and spend some time with them alongside trying to see whether I can replicate some of my early lessons in Citibank and Standard Chartered back in the new world, in India shining world, with Barclays. So I joined them when we launched the credit cards, retail bank, and SME lending. Unfortunately, when we joined, which was in 2007, early 2008, you had the financial crisis taking shape in the US. At that point in time, the tremors were being felt here. We anticipated that there would be an impact, but we did not envisage that it would have such an impact on a new business that we were trying to set up. So it was an unmitigated disaster, as in, we had best people. Remember all the lessons. First decide who you want to do before you decide what you want to do. So I had the best people possible identified, and together we decided, let's, India shining, let's go after the opportunity in the retail and the small, medium, and middle market corporate segments. And we said, okay, thus far Barclays was only known for the investment bank, let's kind of create this business, right? So who, what, we sorted out. And then we also had, a fantastic brand. Many of you may have heard of the Barclays Premier League. At that point in time, we used to sponsor the Football League in the UK. Ours is a UK headquartered bank. And many, our brand was known because it was widely, popular among those who watched football. Yeah, your brand was all over. And when we did a brand survey, we also found that our brand had an aspirational angle to it. So this was well positioned for us to do what we were intending to do. Capital was not a constraint. This was a global bank. It's a multinational company. At that point in time, in 2007, I think it was by assets, maybe the largest or certainly in the top three. So money capital was not a problem at all. So team, a business model, capital, brand we had. Yet it was a disaster of a launch from the perspective that we had to sell off the business. So one of the lessons that I think that experience taught me was beyond all of this, yeah, team, execution, business model, capital, there is an important thing, and that thing is timing, which is how do you get right? At that point in time when we launched something called, what Hello Money was what we had branded it, very similar to the Paytm wallet and all of the wallets that are available right now. But that was way back in 2007. So possibly an idea at that point in time, the regulatory restriction was that you cannot transfer more than 5,000 rupees through this. So this was a severe limitation. We did this through USSD platforms. So it was not a speech necessary for you to have a smartphone. You could do it through a feature phone. All of that we had thought through, but it was still a failure. Yeah. So one lesson for me was, if you were to think about factors that go into business success, one can't emphasize enough the timing. And how do you get timing right? Now, that is a big question, right? I wish if everybody knew how to get timing right, I guess you wouldn't have any business that fails at all, right? So I'm still trying to find out, what are the aspects around timing that we could potentially improve, and I'm still learning. Anyway, so here was I left whatever my career with Standard Chartered. Things were going very well. I joined with a couple of many of like-minded people, and we wanted to launch a business. It was a disaster. We were losing a lot of money. And if I were to resuscitate my career, if I were to endure in this career, I knew that I had to pick myself up. And that I think is a very vital piece that I want everybody, to know that it is so vital. Sometimes it is possible that you don't encounter failure in your early life. Like I said, you may have aced your school, you may have won possibly the university scholarships. In business, you were possibly success after success. But when failure comes, as it will certainly do, you need to be able to take that punch and stand up and try and think about, what did I learn and how can I move forward? Those years when this business was a failure was phenomenal. For me, it was maybe the first time in my career I was having such a large failure. We had to, not just about what it meant for me, but for people that I had asked them to join Barclays under that promise. So we had to let go of a lot of people because our business was not a success. So I was going through personal, trauma to try and find out where I can get my strength to work through this. And I did. And I think it is not just, me. That is why I said the support circle around me. Everything that I am today is because I've ridden on the shoulders of so many people. I can't thank them all enough. And a classic point is just this. In any business, if you have failure, what is a natural reaction? There must be something wrong with this guy. Let's just get rid of him. But that's not what the bank did. The bank invested in me. Ram, think about this in terms of what you learn. Here is an opportunity for you. Use that learning and help us build a corporate investment and a private bank, a wholesale bank. And that's what we did. So from 2011 to 2020, here I am, leading the company, which is a wholesale bank. So grit and resilience, the ability to take the knock, the punch in the face when it comes is so, so important. And that you can only take it if you are self-confident, you're confident about your skills, you are humble about what you did wrong, what you can do better, and you have your support network around you. Yeah, this is one lesson. The final lesson I want to talk about, we are already been talking for such a long time. So the final lesson is about how all of this is a journey, right? And one of the things that I realize is that in a career which spans maybe 30, 35 years, one has to think about this as a journey. And that journey need not be one that is perfect. I think it is more about an imperfect journey where you try and discover more and more about yourself. And that's what I feel today. If you think about me, about what my thought process is about a career, I would think it is essentially about three things. First thing, and this is not something that I'm saying from my own experience, scores of research has been done. There's one fantastic author called Daniel Pink who has written a book called Drive. For those of you who are interested, could potentially, glance through that. And I think these 3 points are what he talks about. The first one is a degree of, autonomy, which is ability to want to shape things, the ability to do things that we feel we want, we are interested in. That degree of freedom, autonomy is what I think we look for in a career. The second thing that I think we look for is an opportunity to master a skill. Yeah, this could be simple things. This could be about how do you create order from chaos, or it could be a simple thing like how do you help people discover potential that they believe they don't have. This could be something about how do I communicate my ideas a lot more cogently than otherwise. The power of written, it could be anything. It could be anything. But we want an opportunity to hone our skills, which is entirely what the purpose of TIS and this, the Skills University, the video that we saw was all about, which was about trying to upskill ourselves as we move through this journey. That was the second aspect that I learned. The third aspect is one around doing all of this because there is meaning. When you start out, I felt, and when you, I think I'm trying to say that on your behalf, which is wrong. Let me do it for myself. When I started out, I could have done this for myself, for money, for some goals that I had. But then I certainly realized that over a period of time, there is a difference between goals and meaningful goals, which I call as purpose. You think about now the situation we are all in. It exposes the human frailty, at its worst, right? I mean, so many things we want to do. We can't even engage with each other in person. How sad is this? At this point in time, to say that, I will be motivated by profits more than purpose, about how I can, by virtue of who we are, try and help some of them who may have lost their daily livelihood, or try and upskill people who may have lost their jobs. These are some things that we can do. And if we fought all of that, instead of focusing on those, we focused on just trying, okay, let's kind of try and see how we can maximize our own profits for our own company. I don't think any of us would like that, right? And that's what I felt. Ultimately, people work for the company or people work for you because you have given them a vision of doing something meaningful. And that meaning comes because it is not focused on you, but it is focused on us or other people. So remember what I started with. There is intentionality. That is, there is a correlation between ambition and achievement. I just want to correct that. I think we want to say that there should always be an intentionality around us, not intentionality around me. What do I gain that will lead to any meaningful achievement? Yeah. So this is my final lesson. I think we are all looking for autonomy, mastery, purpose, and I think we can find them. So you start off something narrowly as goals. Let me get on with it. Let me win this business. Let me win this deal, etc. And suddenly, over a period of time, as you grow up in the hierarchy, you realize all of this is meaningless unless it is oriented towards a social purpose, towards social impact. Yeah. With that, I have come to the conclusion of what I wanted to say. I'm more than happy to take questions. So, Tanmay ji or Shilpa ji, I don't know how we want to take questions, but I'm open for them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gopal. That was such an insightful session. In fact, all the points that you mentioned right from the beginning, we were trying to summarize it. Very, very clear thoughts that you shared with the students, the participants today. And in fact, it was a pleasure listening to your talk. And we could really understand what you are trying to tell them. And I'm sure at that age, I didn't understand what you told me today, uh, but today I can understand what you are trying to tell all of us. We hope that, given that they got this opportunity to listen into this talk this evening, they will be able to understand and perhaps carry these messages along as they try to chase the purpose, not some of these goals that we all are good at chasing. So thank you so much, Mr. Gopal, for that wonderful talk. Akashji, Shilpaji, would you like to say a few words before we open this for questions?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. What a beautiful journey, and so well expressed and explained, and all the learnings throughout your journey, which you've been able to share with our students. I am sure that's been a great takeaway for each one of them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I always believe that listening to a story and a live story is the best way to learn. I wish I could walk with you on a Kerala beach and listen to you more, because there's so much to learn. Starting from, and I'm sure, I don't know. I wish to ask you, how are you feeling getting into the flashback and talking from 27 years of story in maybe 27 or 30 minutes. I know there is a lot more to talk, lot more to learn from you, and we look forward to maybe hear you again sometime. But inspiring and influential, a lot of learning which we have picked up, and I'm sure we'll practice that, and we'll make the students also learn and practice that. This is amazing to listen from you, learn from you. It's like reading many biographies. And one very important aspect, apart from various other aspects which you spoke about, is learning from fantastic failure stories, so that you face it and you get up again and bounce back. So thank you so much. Looking forward for some interesting questions. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Akashji. As you can see on your screen, Akshata, uh, Gauri, uh, I think Kengsha, Keksha, Priyanka. Wonderful. Thank you so much for that feedback. we are delighted to receive. We're glad that you liked the session and you have taken something back home today. You can ask your questions, students, now, and we look forward to taking some good questions today. Aarti, thank you so much. Rohan, thank you. Thank you for that feedback. Rajeshri, thank you so much. Students, you can now ask questions.
By the time the students think, if you allow me, I'll ask a question on their behalf.
Please.
Having been in that journey, spending a lot of time with them. One of the monster monkey sitting in our head keeps telling us that, we want to start big, So aiming high is extremely important and good to do. But one of the hurdle which I see with the students, which they face is, so when it comes to opportunities, they come maybe in a smaller form, with a smaller role. And that's where when you spoke about how you started your journey 27 years back, where you started and where you took it today. So that's how you traverse the whole journey. One of the challenges which they face is they can't visualize that where this role will take them to. And hence they look at it as it is, here and now, and say, this is a small role and hence I don't wish to get into it. It's a sales role, hardcore sales. I have to go to the field, maybe meet people and all that stuff. Banking dimensions have changed. You know that better than all of us. What 2-3 suggestions you would like to give, sir, to the students to try and visualize the role beyond what it looks?
Akash, you raised such a great point, and you said it brilliantly. I think sometimes what happens is either because we have high expectation of ourselves, when an opportunity comes, we feel that it is beneath us, that role. The other scenario also could happen, which is we are unable to see how that role could develop or evolve over a period of time, right? And so I think the way I want to talk about this is how I saw this, right? The first day of my job, this is, the first day, this that is I have not worked in a, of course we had some, what shall I say, project work, etc., which we did with the summer internship, which we did with a company, but I didn't have any real experience of working in a corporate setup. And the first day I went into the workplace, and the role was, to take an application, and you have to check that on the system, and the system will tell you whether somebody with similar, some aspect of that profile had applied earlier or not. Let me repeat that again. It could be possible that I have an application in front of me. That applicant could have applied before. Yeah. So I need to have a mechanism to ensure that I don't end up giving the same person multiple cards. We're talking about way back now. If you open a wallet, cards fall down. Yeah, so many cards are given to the same individuals. At that point in time, we were wanting, because buy now, pay later was an alien concept, if I may say, to India, right? Because to borrow was like, stigma. So going back to where I wanted, so the job was to go into the system to see whether this applicant had applied before or not. And that role, you just have to punch in, there is a reference number, you punch in on the system, and you decide, and you can see, yes, there is, it has happened before. No, it has not happened before. You have to take a pile of applications, split them into two after checking. And I was there till 3 a.m. in the morning. And I was I was staying with my uncle because my family was in Coimbatore. Those folks were all very worried about where is this guy who left in the morning, who hasn't come back as yet. Those were the days we this telephone was an unknown concept, this mobile phone, etc. And we visiting cards only happened much later, right? So corporate telephone, what number it is, none of those things we knew before. So my uncle's family were very anxious. I was sitting doing this work. The reason why I'm saying all of this is one starts in anything very, very humbly. I think what was important was, and this was just in many ways, I think this was a test by the company as to what my attitude and approach to work is. I started figuring out easy ways to do this than just doing what I was doing. I said, you give me this, all of these reference numbers in a file, you give me this in a file, I will look up and I will tell you whether this works or not. So what was possibly, one of the dumbest job became an opportunity to showcase your thinking, right? So please do take risks. And, there is, uh, I would like to submit that, while you shouldn't shortchange yourself, I don't think any job is beneath you. One of the things that I have found out as I traverse this journey is, they say you rise to the highest level of incompetency. I'm humbled by how many things I don't know about how things work in a bank. I've spent 27 years in a bank. I don't know many things. That gives me humility, I would think. If the approach is one about learning, about trying to use that as an opportunity to showcase skills, I think they will end up in the right place. So please do take risks. Think, even if you don't have a clear picture of what the role is going to be, as long as you bring with you some skills, and you can any day present yourself as a better candidate for a better job if it doesn't work.
Brilliant.
Uh, Wonderful. Thank you. We have a few questions. You can see one question on your screen. That is from Arti Kamble. How to cope with moving to a new environment? So, as students, they will be all graduating. They will be joining a new organization in a few months from now. That is, I think, in that context, this question is being asked.
Yeah, I think it is a fantastic question to ask. And I go back to my early days, instead of competition, think of co-option. The more you invest on relationships, this is a people's business. Any company you go to, it is a people's business. You can talk about some rocket science, but it is also made, it has human beings coming to work with it. And now maybe there is the rise of the robots. But, let's wait to see how that happens. But I think relationships are going to be important. And the way to think about in a new environment is to try and find, ways by which you can collaborate. The second thing I would encourage you is to take a little bit of risk. What do I mean by that? Typically, you tend to go to a new environment, you look for similarity, you look for likability. What do I mean by that? If there is a South Indian who also hails from my same village that I hailed from, hey, our backgrounds are similar, let's connect. You form that kind of bond, which is great. I'm not saying nothing wrong about it. But you also try to build bonds with somebody who is so unlike you. That is the power of diversity, the openness that creates new learning. So in a new environment, go with an open mind, try and risk yourself, show a little bit of yourself. And there is a nice pyramid which we use about how you create great performance. I'll just take half a second to just lay it out. At the bottom of the pyramid is trust. Yeah, any performance, great performance, starts with trust. And what does trust depend on? You can't form trust unless you are willing to show yourself, willing to be vulnerable. What do I mean by that? Which is show a little of yourself. It's okay if you ask somebody to say, "Would you join me for lunch? Would you like uh, to have a cup of coffee with me?" Or to ask the first question, or to be the first one to make a move. You are risking at worst what will happen. No, I'm not interested. So fine, you try again in a different way. So this ability to risk yourself, I think is so important in many dimensions. Yeah. So it is easy to do what typically one does, which is to find pockets of similarity. I'm encouraging you to think a little bit wider and look for dissimilarities, try and see whether you can use that as a learning ground to open your mind. And the second one is be vulnerable. It's okay. You are who you are. And you are so unique that that is the uniqueness we should respect and we should applaud. We don't want to turn you into somebody who you are not. That is not the purpose of a company or the purpose of this environment. It is to take you as who you are and try and create an environment around you. That's the job of a line manager. If I truly believe that I need to be a manager or a leader or a somebody who looks after you or who has your back, this is what I should be doing. So trust in that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that answer. Uh, there is one more question from Suman Chaurasia, and she asks, "How can I stay focused on my goal?"
Okay. I don't know where the in what the perspective is, but I can think about two or three angles to this. The first one was about being intentional. So maybe I think the question was, how does one be intentional? Perhaps that's the point. The other angle could be is in this FOMO world, I could be a doctor, I can be an engineer, I can be an artist, I can be a singer, I can be a DJ, I can be, a banker. Oh, I can do so many things. Now, what do I want to do? Perhaps I think maybe there is a multifaceted aspect of a personality, and therefore one is possibly asking the question, how do I therefore choose which out of these multiple facets do I want to spend more time on or to create a career about? It could be the other angle about it. So let me try and address these two questions, and if there is a different angle to it which I haven't covered, someone please feel free to add some perspective or color to your question. So going back to the first thing about being intentional. Being intentional is about trying to tell yourself why you're doing a particular thing. That if many a time we get lost in the action. In order for those actions to mean something to you, you need to ask yourself the question why you are doing what you're doing. This is not rocket science, but it is so basic, and I can't tell you how much of motivation comes just from being truthful to yourself about this why. So I always say this to people: before what, kindly focus on why. So, how do I focus on my goals? By asking yourself why that goal means so much to you. Add some flesh to it, add some energy to it. So, possibly I'm in the fag end of my for my career, right? And what brings me to work every day? I said that. This is about trying to create meaning for the effort that I'm engaged in. And that is why I think I want to do this as long as I can. So, one way of focusing on goals is to try and focus on the why you have that particular goal. Why does it mean so much to you? it means so much to me because I'm the first in the family to earn an income. I need this because it means that I can set myself up to start a family. Whatever is the rationale is for you. It could be inward. It does not matter. You have a great starting point. How it becomes more powerful if that why has a social dimension to it. You are doing this not because it gives an alpha to you, but it also benefits other people. And I'm saying, don't push the case. It will come organically. There will be a point in your time, in your life, in your career, where we will all be able to see beyond our noses. I pray and I wish that we all get there soon. But that is another way to get more energy around goals and how do you get focused. That's one way of thinking about how do I stay focused on goals. The other way that I do is I syndicate it broad and wide. I tell everybody I want to be an Iron Man before I turn 50. I said this to everybody. Yeah, that means I run now. I'm not much of a swimmer, but that's a new skill I have to learn. I'm an okay cyclist, not somebody who can do 100 kilometers. Yeah. So, I've told so many people. So I don't want to lose face in front of these people who mean so much to me. And therefore that gives more energy. So syndicated by get a support system for you so that you can stay focused on your goal. Yeah, that's another aspect, dimension to how I can stay focused on my goal. And the last one that I would think is that whether it is driven by social impact, whether it is for reasons for self, which is your own reasons for why you're doing it, or because you don't want to lose face, you have syndicated it to so much. I think one simple way of staying focused on the goal is take some time off to reflect on where you are and where you want to go. And these are, you today, when you talk about yoga, meditation, mindfulness, you know, it's in some sense, our country has that in our culture, for generations, right? It pays to take some time to find out where are you, what help do you need, where can you find it, what steps did you try, what did you learn, what didn't work. To be reflective, I think, is a key way to stay focused on the goal. Yeah. So some tips, see whether it works.
Thank you. Suman, hope that answered your question. That was a great response. You can put your comment in the chat if that has answered your question. We have one more question from Aziz and Sona Gorai. Both of them have asked the same question. How can I stay positive and avoid negative thoughts?
Ah, fantastic, fantastic. How can I avoid negative thoughts? Maybe I think I'll go to management science first, and then we'll come back to this. That'll give me some time also to organize my thoughts. In people and career, there are two ways in which you can build it, right? I mean, if you think about yourself and you want to improve yourself, there are two ways you can do it, right? You can focus on your strengths, you can focus on areas of weakness. Research has found that it pays for us to focus a lot on strengths rather than focus on weakness. It's not me telling. People have done research on this subject. In fact, there is a whole science around it by this company called Gallup. This Gallup is a company. There were two gentlemen, Marcus Buckingham. I forget the other gentleman's name, Colin somebody. I think they have distilled the entire employee engagement into 12 questions, and that is based on the work that they had done around Strengths Finder. They classify based on your preferences, interest, where your strengths are, and they have developed some thoughts on how you might amplify your strengths. Yeah. So using that research as a basis, coming into your question on how do I stay positive, I think you're asking it in the right manner, which is rather than try to avoid negative thoughts, let's see how we can continue to stay in the positive zone. Don't think of a pink elephant. It's hard not to think of a pink elephant, right? But if we were talking about something else, I mean, this pink elephant doesn't come into the conversation at all. Maybe, a very rudimentarily, I could say how I can stay positive thoughts is to just focus on being grateful for what we all of us already have. It goes back to one of uh, just a quick theory because it's important. How do you form habits? Because this going into this negative zone could also be a habit. And the question underneath this question is, how do I change habits? So one thing that I find around habits is you make small incremental experimental changes. So the typical thing, right? I want to start, we spoke about me wanting to be an Ironman, and one thing of that is I need to pick up the skill for swimming. So the only way to improve swimming is for me to start, right, and make small gains. Like there is this classic thing, right? If you take a decimal, let's say 0.99, and exponent it to 365, 0.99 to the power 365, you find the answer. And you do 1.01 to the power 365, you find the answer. You will find that just for a small incremental difference between 0.99 to 1.01, it just gets magnified. The outcome is so different. And you made only small changes. So try and make, where I'm going with all of this is, if you want to change habits, if you want to get into the positive territory, start small, start an experiment to say that I will be in the zone. And you say, I will be in the zone for, pick a number, 5 minutes a day. You are comfortable for 5 minutes, then you tell yourself, okay, can I try 10 minutes? Set yourself experiment. Reward yourself when you meet, you get those outcomes that you want. It could be in the simple manner of writing in your notebook. This is something that I advise everybody. Hold for yourself uh, 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 a personal diary where you can reflect on your thoughts, write something about it. Yeah. So in that you could tell yourself that, congratulate yourself that you did that. And then I think the third way for doing or amplifying that is if you can get, like I said, you syndicate it to so many people, right? Like that, you amplify, you tell so many people that, hey, if I have this behavior, please, you alert me so that I can try and be mindful and change it. Yeah. So some thoughts. The other useful practice that I would encourage all of you to try is write a gratefulness diary about things that we want to be, because this is a question about staying in the positive zone. There is so many things that we ought to be so grateful for in this environment when there are so many people whose livelihoods, whose lives are at risk. Here is all of us in a relatively comfortable way talking to each other about some esoteric concepts. There is so much to be grateful for. And I think if we can do all of this in a small way. Remember this 0.99 to the power 365, 1.01 to the power 365. I saw in some LinkedIn feed a few days ago. I thought it was a powerful thought. So some thoughts on how you might want to think about changing habits. Thank you, Aziz and Sona, for that question.
Thank you, Mr. Gopal. Thank you for that response. Aziz and Sona, hope that answered your question. You can put your comments in the chat box. We have the next question. Can we take two more questions before we wind up? I know you had said 5 to 6. We are at 6:16 now. Hope two questions. Are they okay?
Sure, please.
Sure. Uh, Next question is from Imtiaz, and he asks, you can see that on your screen, what does the future of banking look like?
Yeah, I think this is the whatever billion dollars question, right? What will this future look like? There are few things that you know for sure. There are few things that are still unknown. One of the things that we've spoken a lot about is the fact that now uh, more and more it is the case that people are getting comfortable with the digital mechanisms. I'm just reflecting on my own conversation with Akash a little earlier in the day. I was telling him, no, please don't bring new, mechanisms in terms of web feed. Give me Zoom, give me WebEx. I don't want to try anything else because, in my company, there are certain restrictions on what you can access, what you can't. Uh, you know, but look at this. I think we have spent 1 hour together. It is going seamlessly. I hope you all had were able to hear me clearly, and I was audible enough. But this is what it is. People who are so far uncomfortable about digital mechanisms now seem to be wanting more of it. So this is a trend. We don't want to ignore that. So we are going on that path. So that is something that we can say for sure. What is it that we can't say for sure? I'll give you an example on the other end. What will be the shape of the recovery? Will it be V shape? Will it be U shape? Will it be Z shape? I mean W shape. We can spin a lot of things based on what our view of the world is. But the reality is that there has been injury. We have to go through a healing period before we can, uh, become the athlete that we want of ourselves, right? So that is something that we all are sure that in many ways, because banking is so integral to the economy, we are tied to the economy. Therefore, how fast it moves up, how fast we are able to find a resolution for the pandemic is going to play an important role in how this future of banking is going to look like. Yeah. So very, very generic thoughts. I am deliberately being vague because this was about people. I didn't want to get it technical.
Thank you. Imtiaz, hope that answered your question. Give us a thumbs up in the chat box. We have the last question of the day, and the question is from Priyanka Deshali, and she asks how to make new friends in a new organization and how to deal with people who are aggressive.
Don't worry about making friends in a new organization. Everybody is like you, wondering how to make friends with you. So it is this classic case of who takes the first step. I told you about being vulnerable. As long as you take that as an experiment, hey, here I am, I'm confident. There was one important thing, and which is common across some of those questions, and I want to bring that up. It came up in the question about how do I stay in the positive zone. It came up in this question. It came up in the earlier question about how do we think about entering organization, which is about self confidence. I mean, this is the key. This is the core. Yeah, we have to be very comfortable about who we are. There could be so many things that have happened in our life, punches we have taken, good things that have happened that we may hopefully end up feeling positive about ourselves. For those people who are not feeling positive, please take help. There is no reason to believe that we can't identify aspects about yourself that you can't feel confident about. So one of the first things, and I think it happens in every organization, is something called a values, preferences, and interest inventory. So if you were to join our company, one of the first things we do is to try and make you understand for yourself what is the value that you hold for yourself. Yeah, what do you cherish? What do you stand for? Who are you? What defines you? Where is it that you're willing to be open? Where are you so tight? Where are you so close? It's important. What is your interest? What is your motivation? The why that we spoke about. It's very important to know all of those things. And this thing that I spoke about, self reflection, taking time, thinking about yourself, thinking about all of these things, I can't emphasize that enough. Yeah, it's a simple thing. It's a simple tool, a gratefulness diary, a simple diary, which is something that I carry even today about your reflections. I think it is so key. So, on new friends, coming back to what you started with, uh, everybody equally wants to build rapport, wants to build collaboration, wants to be friendly with you. I wouldn't think of a reason why somebody would start off with a negative disposition with somebody else, unless clinically there is something wrong with them, which I'm not competent to talk about. Yeah, on an average, everybody would like to work with other people, to make new connections, to form new bonds, to have a personal friend at work. Everybody wants this. So that's the starting point. Second starting point, so self-confidence, and you have to be fully, assured that everybody is equally looking to make the connection with you. That's a take it as a truth. Yeah. And the third aspect is what we spoke about earlier about vulnerability. You wanting to make that first move, it doesn't matter about this. The other thing that I tell people is volunteer. Uh, in any company that is worth its salt, there is something called employee interest groups or people interest groups, which is I'm good in trying to talk about issues around environment. So we have a group. I'm good talking about things that impact the community. So we've got a group for that. Like at any company, I'm not holding us as an example, but any company worth its salt has got these interest groups. Volunteer for any of those. Uh, Volunteer to organize some expert to come and talk to your colleagues about an area of expertise. Try and what I'm saying is if you expect people to walk up to you to do that, that's one way of dealing with life. The other way of dealing with life is to be a little more actively, being a little more intentional, as what we were speaking about. I want you all to think about how do we be intentional. Talking about being aggressive now, you know, I'm not saying that you won't encounter aggressive people in the company. You would. Everybody has got a hot button, which is why they are behaving the way they are behaving. If we can try and understand what their hot buttons are, and if we can try and find a strategy that we can address their hot buttons, then I guess, lo and behold, somebody who you thought you could never have a relationship with, suddenly finds, you feel that it is free flowing. Yeah. So again, try and be curious about other people. If you're only interested in yourself, chances are we may not learn anything about anybody about the world. So all I'm saying is think about what I said. If the spotlight can be turned away from us into others, into the society at large, that's wonderful. Yeah. If you can find out what makes them tick, if you find out what their interests are, what their preferences are, what are their value systems, what did they grow up with, if you can elicit from them the stories about themselves, what their hopes are, fears are, aspirations are, that's the connection that you are looking for. Yeah. So I would encourage you uh, to deal with aggressiveness with empathy. Yeah. Try to build the connection. Appears simplistic. It is easy to tell, but give it a try, please.
Thank you. You can see the comments that are coming in. Uh,
I
Yogita,
had to
thank you.
figure out how to see it. I can see it flash at the bottom of my screen. And I want to thank all of you for such being so generous with your comments. Yeah. You know, I hope Tanmay, I leave it to you if you want to close it. But just as closing remarks, it's been a wonderful chatting with you. Tanmay ji, Akash, specifically, I think who started off this, Shilpa ji, thank you for having me. I can be reached at ram.gopal@barclays.com. Available if you think you want to pick up a connection. But I wish you the very best. Yeah, each one of us have, specifically people like yourself. You got the entire career ahead of you. I only wish the very best for all of you. Thank you so much.
Sir, as you can see on your screen, so thank you so much, sir, for sharing your invaluable thoughts with us this evening. We are truly grateful, and it was an honor to have you on this program today. Thank you so much for taking the time out to share so many experiences, very insightful ones, with all of us, with our students today. Thank you. We are grateful to you.
Thank
Akashji,
you so much,
Shilpaji, would you like to
everybody.
do some final words? One line, maybe?
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Just that I know I also carried the practice filled more than 3 pages with your insights. Just that somewhere you said that you are at the fag end of the career. I think corporate world and society at large needs people like you. So we wish all the very
So
best to
kind
you
of
as
you.
well. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
We'll
Thank you, sir. I just love the gratitude diary because I follow a gratitude statement every morning where I just say thank you for keeping my loved ones alive and me alive to see today's day. So thank you so much. I'm glad I was alive today
Oh,
to
so kind of you.
be a part of this
So
excellent.
kind of you. Thank you all.
the,
You
the
humbled
comments
me. Thank you.
comments keep coming in, so we'll end the broadcast here. Thank you all the participants for joining in, for listening in to our speaker today, Mr. Ram Gopal, CEO of Barclays Bank India. Thank you so much.
You folks appreciate it.